Welcome back. We'll be continuing our exploration and source criticism of the Islamic text that we started in the video on Muhammad and Mengapa mysticism. We're going to stick to the Quran here with the account of Adam and Iblis. Now, this occurs in numerous places throughout the Quran, in part or in whole. Here's a list of the pericopes in the Quran. You can look up each one of those cases and do a comparative study if you would like. But in this video, we're going to compare what we see in this story to texts that predate the Quran. So we'll be looking at three texts. Namely, I'll put them up on the screen for you. The first is the life of Adam and Eve. The original composition would be about 100 BC to 200 AD, with later Greek and Latin text added around the 5th century. The second text we'll look at is the Gospel of Bartholomew. That's about the 3rd century. And then the Book of the Cave of Treasures, which comes from about the 4th century. So we're just going to look at 5 elements, and we're going to see how they exist in the Quran and then in the text that predate the Quran. So let's go through a quick comparative study. The first element of the story of Adam and Iblis that we'll look at is the command to bow down to Adam. From Surah 2 and Surah 18, you see the command there. We said to the angels, bow down to Adam, and again in Surah 18. Now, the command to worship is more explicitly stated in the life of Adam and Eve. Michael brought you and made us worship you in the sight of God. This is repeated later in the life of Adam and Eve in chapter 14. Michael went out and called all the angels, saying, worship the image of the Lord God, as the Lord God has instructed. And we can add in here as well the Gospel of Bartholomew. Michael said, worship thou the image of God. So the common element here of the command to bow down or to worship Adam exists in the Quran, as well as these 3 earlier texts. The second element that we'll look at is where the angels actually bow down or worship Adam in Surah 15. So the angels prostrated themselves, and in Surah 20, we said to the angels, prostrate yourselves to Adam. They prostrated themselves. From the Book of the Cave of Treasures, when the angels heard this speech, they all bowed the knee and worshipped him. From the life of Adam and Eve, and Michael himself worshipped first. So the angels worship. This is, again, another common element. Satan refuses in Surah 7. Not so Iblis, he refused to be of those who prostrate. And Surah 17, they bowed down except Iblis. And once again, this is a common element in the Book of the Cave of Treasures. God said to him, come thou also, for thou shalt worship my image and likeness. Satan refused to do so. From the life of Adam and Eve, Satan answered, I do not worship Adam. And once again, from the Gospel of Bartholomew, Satan said, I am of fire. I was the first angel formed, and shall worship clay and matter. So Satan refuses to worship in all of these accounts as well. The next common element, Satan criticizes man as inferior. From Surah 38, I am better than he. Thou createst me from fire, and him thou createst from clay. Surah 15, I am not one to prostrate myself to man, whom thou didst create from sounding clay, from mud, molded into shape. This is true as well in the Book of the Cave of Treasures. It is meet that he should worship me, for I existed before he came into being. From the life of Adam and Eve, why do you compel me? I will not worship one inferior and subsequent to me. I am prior to him in creation. Before he was made, I was already made. He ought to worship me. And we quoted this previously from the Gospel of Bartholomew. In Satan's refusal, he proclaims that he is superior because he was formed from fire. The next common element we'll look at is the expulsion of Satan. This occurs in Surah 7. Get thee down from this. It is not for thee to be arrogant. Here, get out. Thou art the meanest of creatures. And again in Surah 38, Satan is expelled. This occurs as well in the Book of the Cave of Treasures. Hurl him down from heaven to earth. And we have this as well in the life of Adam and Eve. We were expelled into this world from our dwellings and have been cast onto the earth. From the Gospel of Bartholomew, then was God wroth with me and cast me down, having commanded the windows of heaven to be opened. So the common elements that we've explored here between the Quran and pre-existing texts: first, the command to bow down to Adam. The angels then bow down. Third, Satan criticizes man as inferior. Fourth, Satan refuses to worship. And then finally, Satan is expelled. So this brings up a number of questions. For example, the Quran claims to affirm what came before it, i.e. the Torah and the Gospel. From Surah 3, we see that quite clearly. Then in Surah 5 as well, confirming that which was revealed before him in the Torah, and we bestowed on him the Gospel. But the problem is that these books are nowhere near the Torah and the Gospel. That's quite clear from both their composition as well as their theology.